for the inquiry into the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism and event sectors continues. Please ensure that mobile phones are switched to silent and that any background noise is minimised. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and I pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging. I wish to welcome any members of the public that are watching via the live broadcast. My name's Amber Erdigan and I'm chair of the committee, and I'd also like to acknowledge my fellow committee members that are present here with us today. Ms. Wendy Lovell, Mr. Mark Jebb, Dr. Catherine Cumming, Mr. Tim Quilty, Mr. Lee Talamas, and Mr. Andy Medic, Mr. Beverly McCarver, and Mr. Rod Barden. All evidence taken at this hearing is protected by parliamentary privilege as provided by the Constitution Act 1975 and further subject to the provisions of the Legislative Council standing orders. Therefore, the information you provide during this hearing is protected by law. However, any comment reported outside the hearing may not be protected. Any deliberately false evidence or misleading of the committee may be considered a contempt of Parliament. All evidence is being recorded and you'll be provided for a proof version of the transcript following the hearing. Transcripts will ultimately be made public on the committee website. We welcome your opening comments, but ask that they be kept to a maximum of 7 minutes. Could you please start by stating your name for the benefit of the Hansard team and then begin your presentation. Over to you, Peter. You're the chair of the Winter Blues Festival.
Thank you very much. I'm Peter Baker-Williams. I'm the chairperson of the Echuca Moama Winter Blues Festival, and I'm happy to be here today talking about the impact of COVID-19 on regional events. First of all, I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today. I respect their traditions, culture and elders. I further commit to supporting the Wishful Treaty. If I can give a little history on the Winter Blues Festival for those who do not know about us, we began in 1999 as an annual blues music festival. In the beginning, we ran one Sunday in the last Sunday in July for half a day, and it has grown from then to now. It runs for 3.5 days at the same time each year. We get between 20 and 25,000 patrons attending each year, so it's quite a significant event. One of the reasons that we are unusual and perhaps a little bit unique is that we are free. And that creates a lot of challenges for us in the best of times. But we are also probably the only occasion you can see the best of Australian blues artists all in one location. Most other festivals where you pay to go, in fact, get a lot of internationals in and don't have many Australians playing. What we did when we started in 1999, and I was there at the time, we turned one of the quietest weeks of the year into one of the busiest. Indeed, many of our venues now report that their trade over the Winter Blues weekend is bigger than any other 3 days of the year. And that includes the peak tourism times at Christmas. Accommodation in the Twin Towns has gone from occupancies of around 20% to a minimum stay of 3 days, with many patrons staying for a whole week. In 2019, the Winter Blues Festival ran over 26 stages with over 60 different acts, both in venues and on the street. The Remplan model of Campaspe Shire showed that nearly $10 million worth of value accrued to our community as a result of the festival. In 2018, the survey that we did of participants, patrons at the time, showed that some 67% came from outside of Campaspe and the New South Wales Murray River Shires, therefore they weren't locals. 85% of those came from Victoria, 8.5% from New South Wales, 4% from South Australia, 1% from Queensland, and 0.5% were international, so clearly drawing people from a lot further away. The Winter Blues Festival is run by an incorporated body of volunteers, the majority of whom receive no financial benefit from the event at all. That is, that they are not owners of venues or anyway getting any return. What was the impact of COVID-19? The 2020 Winter Blues Festival had to be cancelled because of the lockdown in place at the time, and this knocked a significant hole in the trade in businesses and employment across the town. It also significantly impacted on the performers' livelihoods. The festival has had fully programmed itself prior to the COVID restrictions coming into place, and as a result of that, we had incurred a number of expenses at around about a loss of $25,000. which we were fortunate enough to have some reserves. Not many. None of that was recoverable from government grants, as we were not a private business, and so didn't qualify for actually getting those sort of funds. The 2021 event has been reduced in scope and has had to be ticketed for the first time to control crowd numbers, as the only way we can do that is issue wristbands, and venues would not actually go into it this year with reduced numbers unless we were subsidising fair music costs. Now, this has caused us a number of image issues for a festival that has always been free, and the expert punters, who are the warriors on social media, have been letting us know of that displeasure. But we have sold out for this year already, and we're hoping that we might sell some more if the restrictions were relaxed. But of course, that hasn't, probably doesn't look as rosy as it did last week. What recommendations would we make to your committee to consider for the future? One of the issues that we've had when we've tried to manage or look forward to how we plan is that there's no clear plan of what is going to happen when restrictions end, and what restrictions may be in place at each stage. And so we're going, not only do we not know what's happening, we can't work out what we might plan for. The second thing we have is a cross-border issue. Clearly, being on the state border, we have a real challenge. You can do some things on the other side and you can't do them on this side. One of our questions would be, do border closures in fact have to happen at the state border? The Southern Riverina of New South Wales is more Victorian than New South Wales, and maybe we could have border closures move further north. Our third recommendation would be not-for-profit community organisations should be eligible for government support to the extent of any expenses that they've actually incurred. Our fourth recommendation would be that performers at major or significant regional events like ours who did not qualify for JobKeeper should have been eligible for some form of government support as well. And clearly, many of our performers are not registered for all the business sort of things, and it made it very difficult for them, and they've had a particularly tough year. And our fifth one is a very undeveloped idea. It's some sort of survivors club. Volunteer committees typically do not belong to industry forums and don't get much encouragement outside of their own community. And having some sort of assistance perhaps in drawing us into those networks or with other groups that are facing the similar sort of challenges might help us on our way to try and rebuild and save ourselves. Now, the other issue that we have, which is not necessarily COVID related, our sixth point is essentially one of our concerns is our competition can jump into other places. And so this year in Tasmania, Devonport, there is a festival on the same weekend as ours. We don't want that to grow and steal the market from us. In June in New South Wales in Tocumwal, there is a fully funded New South Wales blues event happening. Now, it's not on our weekend. They are buying in acts that we can't afford. But the last thing we would like we would hate to have to deal with is, in fact, competition starting up in other states at the time of the year that we're doing it, that make it hard for us to sort of rebuild ourselves and get back into the market. That's all I have to say at the moment. Thank you very much.
Peter, thank you very much for that comprehensive overview of the issues faced by the Winter Blues Festival. I was very heartened to hear the level of volunteer involvement. I must admit, I'm not from Northern Vic, but I've become familiar through your appearance and presentation, and obviously I did do a bit of background reading before you appeared at the committee today. So it's been a pleasure to hear from you, and I like the fact that you've come here with some solid proposals and recommendations for the committee to consider. We will keep them. We will consider them for our deliberations as we move forward. On that point, our next witness will be appearing in the next couple of minutes. So we're not going to get an opportunity to ask you questions today. But we'd like to keep questions on notice, and if we could contact you the next week or so, and if you could properly respond to our questions, that would be very most helpful.
I would be delighted to respond, and I apologise for the technology issues that I've had as a frequent Zoom person. It is very frustrating that the most important Zoom meeting I should have all year I can't get into.
No, that's okay. This whole inquiry, we've heard about the digital connectivity issues faced by regional Victorians. So we've now experienced it also with your appearance today. But thank you again. Keep up the great work, and we look forward to making contact with you shortly. On behalf of the whole committee, say thank you for appearing.
Thank you, Peter.